Do you know what? It's no wonder that so many people who work in the media support the BBC. This is why. They're building a monopoly. Hi, it's me again, and we've talked before on this channel about BBC Studios. I fail to understand how they're allowed to exist. They trade under the BBC name, but they're completely commercial. If you don't believe me, you can have a look on Companies House. They're all listed there. It's not just BBC Studios. They've got BBC Productions Limited, BBC Distribution Limited, many others, UK TV Play as well. I could go on a while. There's quite a few. And you see headlines like this. This isn't the actual story I'm going to talk about, but it sets the tone. So this was from the 12th of July this year. Just look at the headline. A record year for BBC Studios as it builds commercial income. BBC Studios makes quite a lot of money. Many of the shows that you see on the BBC and many of the shows that you say, we must protect the BBC so that we can keep these shows around like Attenborough and that, they're not produced by the BBC themselves. They're produced by BBC Studios and sold to the BBC for your TV licence fee money. And last year, they turned over 1.6 billion and the profits are only 226 because there's probably some clever accounting and some money moved over to the BBC and other bits. But they turned over 1.6 billion selling shows, not just to the BBC, but to other channels in the UK and to streaming services and channels around the world. And it brings us on to this because I read a lot of the trade press at the minute. I dip in and out of the trade press for TV production and stuff because it kind of find the odd thing here to talk about. And I did. Look, there's two stories here, just the headlines, right? But it's ridiculous. Look, BBC Studios takes minority stake in Turbine. BBC Studios has taken a minority investment in British premium scripted indie production company Turbine Studios. Now this happens a lot. They're buying up loads of independent production facilities. Look, there's another one. This is just in the space of like a month on the trade press. BBC Studios takes full ownership of Voltage TV, yet another production company under full ownership of the BBC. The BBC invest in loads of independent production companies in the UK and they own quite a few. But they don't bring them in under the BBC Studios umbrella. They let them keep their independent name and they let them keep trading. And they make shows for the BBC, for other UK channels, for worldwide stuff, for streamers and stuff like that. Okay, and then the profit comes in, but it's all part of BBC Studios' profit. So the numbers that we saw there for BBC Studio sales being a profit of 226 million doesn't tell the whole story, does it? Because they own all these independent production companies or have shares in all these independent production companies that are all making a profit. How can the BBC trade so commercially and openly commercially and making takeovers and doing all of this around the world and in the UK? How can they trade so commercially and still beg you or demand that you pay your 159 quid a year TV licence fee? How is that right? You can't be commercial and beg for money. Which one is it gonna be? You've got to pick a side, BBC. If you want to keep your TV licence fee, then all of this has to come under the same umbrella of the BBC, one BBC, and you trade everything out of that. And every bit of profit that you make comes off your requirement for what you want for the licence fee, which will cap at 3 billion or something, will be generous to you. And every bit of money you make has to come off your requirement for next year. So you make $1 billion in profit, you only get 2 billion next year in TV licence fees, which means everyone's TV licence drops by a third, right? So what, 100 quid a year? That's a bit more affordable. Still ridiculous, but a bit more affordable. But how can you be over there trading commercially and over here saying, oh, we're skint, we need more TV licence fees? You can't have it both ways. It's ridiculous. I don't understand how they're able to trade commercially like this. Well, separate companies as well, all listed on Companies House. Go and have a look yourself. If you find BBC Productions Limited, go on to the people bit on there and you'll find one of the directors. Click her and you'll see the full list of all the BBC has commercially trading under the name the BBC. It's wrong. So I keep seeing these takeovers and these investments on the trade press and I rarely talk about them just because it's not that interesting. But when you get a few together and you see this and you just think, how are they being allowed to get away with it? You know, that these production companies they sell shows to the BBC for licence fee money. It's going round and round and round and round. And the profit is reported under BBC Studios, not under the BBC. It's wrong. Let me know what you think about it, as always, down in the comments below. And thanks for watching, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, because that way, hopefully, I'll see you in another video again soon. Ta-da!